people that we've identified that have very good knowledge with respect to the Bidens. They're one of three things, Maria. They're either currently in court, they're currently in jail, or they're currently missing. They fear for their lives. Not only are the Biden lawyers and the Biden White House intimidating them, the media is trying to intimidate and discredit them.
Mr. O'Boyle was selected for a new unit, moved his family from Kansas to Quantico, Virginia, and the first day he arrives here, after being selected for this new unit, serving in our military, serving well in the FBI, with first day he arrives here, they tell him his clearance is suspended. Mr. Friend raised concerns about using the SWAT team to arrest someone who was willing to turn themselves in. The FBI takes his clearance. Wouldn't even let him get access to his firearms training records, which he needs to get employment. Mr. O'Boyle's went 200 some days without getting paid. Mr. Allen's went 450 days without getting paid. This is the kind of retaliation they have faced for coming forward and telling us the truth. For Mr. Allen, he lost his clearance for simply doing his job, compiling case-related research, using open-source material, news, and articles, and passing them on to the people working the case. And they didn't like some of the material he passed on. 450 days without pay. And the retaliation isn't limited to the FBI. Democrats on this committee also engaged in it. They leaked parts of these guys' interviews to the press. Press reported on it, and then the press had to issue corrections. Post, Washington Post, the New York Times, Rolling Stone, because what the Democrats told them wasn't accurate, what they reported wasn't accurate.
To be blunt, the leadership of the FBI and the DOJ are corrupt. I will name names. Christopher Wray and Mary Garland are corrupt. They know it, we know it, and the American people know it.
Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Plaskett, I think it's important that we recognize this hearing for what it actually is. Make no mistake, this hearing is a vehicle to legitimize the events of January 6th and the people who perpetrated it. And why? Because Donald Trump is running for president again. And if you normalize the events of January 6th, if you repeat his election fraud lies, then maybe he doesn't seem quite so extreme. Maybe it will be easier to overturn a free and fair election the next time. For those of you who have forgotten, on January 6th, a mob of people who believed Donald Trump's lie that the 2020 election was stolen stormed the Capitol, seeking to stop the certification of the 2020 presidential election. They erected a gallows on the lawn just outside this room, and they ran through the halls looking to find and hang the Vice President of the United States. It was a shocking moment of political violence, and many of us on this dais, including myself, were there that day. We all felt the fear of knowing that there were people roaming the Capitol looking to kill us. But clearly, some of us have quickly forgotten that. I've heard my colleagues on the other side of the aisle suggest that, quote, the FBI was participating in the insurrection. They called the rioters who attacked the Capitol, quote unquote, peaceful patriots and quote unquote, political prisoners. And they described the violence on January 6th as akin to a quote unquote, normal tourist visit. It was not. Last year, the Judiciary Committee even had to entertain a resolution on the repeatedly discredited Ray Earp's conspiracy theory. Mr. Allen, your security clearance was first suspended on January 10th, 2022. Is that correct? Yes or no will suffice. The FBI's reason behind your suspension was because it found you to have, quote, espoused conspiratorial views both orally in writing and promoted unreliable information which indicates support for the events of January 6th. Is that correct, yes or no?
That is the language that they placed on the letter.
That's a yes, then. Do you believe it's important for federal agents to have allegiance to the United States, yes or no?
It is absolutely important that personnel
I'll take that as a yes.
Have allegiance.
Do you believe you should have allegiance to the United States to possess a security clearance? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Do you believe your obligation as a federal agent should supersede your First Amendment right? Yes or no?
Wait, what?
Can you please rephrase the question, ma'am?
Do you believe that your obligation as a federal agent should supersede your First Amendment right? Yes or no?
Watch out for gotcha questions.
I don't know. Can you please rephrase the question again, ma'am?
Do you believe that you have an obligation to serve as a federal agent regardless of what your personal political beliefs are?
Well, that's really a different question.
Yes, I have an
Thank you.
obligation.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another Wednesday Night Live. I think I might be cranking a little too loud here, so let me just dial it back a little bit. All right. So welcome back, folks. I hope we got some people from the group here. I put out an @everyone. I'm going to do that on Wednesdays just to give everybody an alert who's in the group. And if, for those that don't know, we have a Facebook group, which I organically started and have never monitored. And because of the free nature of it, that doesn't stop Facebook from going on the attack, but, on people's posts and stuff. But like, I don't attack, and I don't, I just let it go. I don't even bother. Post what you want, and the channel and the group has organically grown to over 1,000 members. I've never promoted it once. I don't even talk about it on the broadcast. But when I saw that it just continued to grow, I was like, well, hell, let's get it on. Let's give some people a platform, even if Facebook tags some of them here and there. For the most part, you're not going to get any grief from me. So it's called the Patriot Think Tank Group. So jump in there. If you don't get alerts from following the page, then that's a good place to go, because I will throw, on Wednesdays, right? On Wednesdays, I'll throw in an @everyone and just let you know that the broadcast is happening in case there's a topic you want to join in on. And then, the topics this week. So for those that are following the content and are actually getting alerts, I actually put up 2 videos this week between live events. And, that's a lot for me, but like what it was getting me, and actually 3 videos to now that I think about it. And they were all based on the FBI hearings. And I'm going to get into that in just a little bit. I'm going to start this off with Target, just because I feel like those that are watching the videos might have gotten some of that content, although you may have things that you want to throw out there. But the Target, if you're not aware, everyone's kind of aware, I guess, of what's been going on with Target. They're putting out these. They've opened up a whole section of their store to not, and they keep saying they did it to. They opened up an LGBTQ or whatever section. No, they opened up a grooming section. So there are like children's swimsuits with what they call, and I had to look this up. Now, maybe I'm just old. I had to look this up, but they called them tuck-friendly bathing suits. And if you don't know what that means, or if you've heard these people, because you must have seen one of these videos just in your feed of these folks going to Target and showing everybody. And the tuck-friendly means, for a guy, it's a women's bathing suit for a young boy. And tuck-friendly means you can tuck your genitalia. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that anyone, anywhere, would think that that's okay for a kid. It's stunning to me. And it brought me into some broader thinking in light of what just happened with Bud Light and all of that. And, Bud Light still, just as an update, they had another sales report this week. Every week it is moving up, the loss in sales. Every week. It was a few weeks ago. It started. The first report came out at 21%. Then after that, another week went by. It was 24%. Then 26%. Then 27.5%. Now this latest one that just came out was 28 point something percent. It's just, that's not going away, right? Bud has destroyed that brand. And I think at this point, for all the look, I was never a fan of boycotting. I've said that a million times on the broadcast, only because it comes, it goes, it is what it is. What I've always been a fan of is similar, but more personal, is just spend your money on places, with companies, with things like that, who share your values, right? Like if you don't know, you don't know. But if you know that there's a company out there who clearly does not share your values and they're using the money that you purchase things with to do things that you are not okay with, then that's something that you should not purchase from that place, right? Now, Target was an interesting one because they wanted, the calls for the boycotts are there, and frankly, Target is 50 times the offender of Bud Light. Bud Light Bud Light was just the wrong product at the wrong time, and it's not like I'm saying that they didn't promote, the whole gender dysphoria on children and the mutilation of children and all the things that come with this transgender movement, but so they did, and they got tagged for it. But they had the specific, they had working men, right? Sports event going men, right? That was their main demographic. Yes, women drank Bud Light too, but their main demographic were Gen X men, you know what I mean, or even millennials at that point, middle class men, right? And that did not bode well. Now, Target, on the other hand, Target, this boycott would require the women to step up, right? And again, it's not that men don't shop at Target. Well, they might not anymore, but this is something where the women got to let go of something. And frankly, as difficult as I hear some women saying it is to give up, it's not that hard to give up. Like this, to me, that this is another softball. If they're grooming children, right, that cannot be tolerated. And I'm seeing a ray of light here. Because Target came out today and said they were going to be removing a lot of those items. They're going to keep their little pride section. So draw your line where you're going to draw it, right? But from what I understand, and I guess it'll take some visits to Target to find out what they actually removed and what they didn't. But in the end, what they're saying they're removing is the particularly grotesque children's stuff. Now, you may say to yourself, you know what? Sorry, I don't care if you remove it at this point, because that's really what's happening to Bud, right? Bud is so toxic right now. Everyone won't go near it. No one will. People that don't care about the issue won't buy it because they don't want to have the conversation. People who do care about the issue will never buy it. Like, everything about it is just toxic, and it's crazy to me that they would allow that to happen, but they did. And it's great because it empowered people. People saw what happened to them. All right. They're being punished. Don't believe all these people who say it's so wealthy, it doesn't matter. It freaking matters. All right. They held one of the number one, I don't know if it was the number one selling beer in the world, but most certainly because it was the number one selling beer in the United States, I can't imagine it, since we drink more alcohol than anybody, I can't imagine that it wouldn't be number one in the world, but it had to be up there. And it not only got its crown ripped off its head, but the head might have gone with it. I mean, that hurts. That hurts. And they're still feeling that, and they'll feel it forever. And that's what made it powerful, is that they'll feel it forever. They'll never get that money back. And BlackRock cannot save them from something like this. And this is where, because if you don't understand how BlackRock works, they're using your money basically to save these companies. So when they make these companies with these ESG rules, when they make them do something stupid and everyone backlashes and then the stock drops for, and they allow it to drop because two reasons. One, they want to give that optics like, yes, look, you have power, speak your mind. And secondly, they make money on it because what they do is they let it drop as you get angry. It's not like whatever the product is has less sales. It's just a reaction in the stock market that's selling. So the product is still selling as normal, but the stock market is reacting like all hell's breaking loose. And what BlackRock does is, and Vanguard and State Street, is they step in as soon as it starts to drop. And I think in the case of InBev, it was like $4 or $5 a share, which was the equivalent initially of like $6 billion. What BlackRock does is they wait, they let it drop, and then they jump in because the sales for the company haven't changed. The question is the anger going to blow over? And normally on these boycotts, the anger blows over. So BlackRock will step in, re-lift up the stock with your money, okay? But you don't complain because that stock then begins to regain its value, but you bought it at the cheaper price and they make billions on it, right? So, and that's the way the game gets played. However, that game gets thrown for a loop when the sales aren't there. When the sales are really not there and the boycott is real and it's legitimate and it's not just some illusion in the stock market, but it's 100% on point. When that happens, the whole game changes because now the stock will drop again. Only it's not going to drop because of some panic news report. It's going to drop because there really aren't the sales there. And that those numbers don't show up officially until the end of the quarter. Really, the beginning of the next quarter is when they report. And when those numbers come out and Bud Light is unseated as king of beers, okay, then you're going to see the stocks drop and BlackRock will not be able to come in and fix it. Why? Why, you ask? Because those sales are never coming back. And if they invest in a losing proposition, again, they're using your money. They're using other people's money. The only thing that allows them to get away with what they do is that they get the returns on these 401ks, on these. It's all you hear that they manage these trillions of dollars. It's not their money. They're not making that money in profit. They're managing that money. So there's power in that, right? But in the end, they can't go back in and save Bud or Anheuser-Busch from that. Now, Anheuser-Busch is not going to go out of business, but they are forever. There's going to be a new normal, and it's going to be billions less in sales than they currently have. And that's a powerful thing. So powerful, in fact, that when the threats began on Target immediately reacted. Now, I don't know if people are going to be happy with that reaction. And, I don't think that they should be. Right. I think time and a place. And the idea behind all of this is stay away from the kids. That's the idea behind all of this. Isabel, how are you today? Over on Facebook says, go woke, go broke. Yeah. And that's the thing. Before, when people said go woke, go broke, no one was going broke. Like, they would all listen to everybody and they'd say, oh, yeah, that sucks and this and that. However, they weren't really going broke because everybody would celebrate the stock drop and then nobody would pay attention again. And what happened during that stock drop was that BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard all step in, buy the stock at the lower price. Company gets back on its feet, looks both ways like a possum after playing dead. It goes, all right, takes off. And no one is the wiser. Everyone's just forgotten about it. And the media's got you on to the next shiny thing. Right. And that's not this time. And that's what makes this one big. And it did get, I was questioning whether, because women are the majority of shoppers at Target. I got to tell you, even my own wife, who has opened her eyes to a lot of what's going on. She's come a very long way. Hard not to when you're living with me, because she's seeing that all of the things that I've been saying, she's starting to see them in the real world. And even she said, when she saw this Target thing, was like, people really need to start stepping up. And why did that give me hope? Why did that give me promise? Because she's that 40% that I always talk about. She's that 40%. You got the 30% who are complete doo-doo-doos. They're all bought in, mass formation, full effect, etc. The other extreme, you got the other 30%, like you guys, like me, who don't, who fully see and are going through this eyes wide open. And you got that 40% in the middle who see it, but won't say. They just want to conform. They please don't make me do it. All right, you want me to put the mask on, take the mask off, put the mask on, take the mask off. Just let me go shopping. Just let me do this. Please let me have my freedoms, and I'll do whatever you say. I'll comply with whatever you want. Right? And obviously that's a majority who's in that camp. And those are the people who need to get reached. Those are the people who finally threw their hands up during the Bud Light thing. Those are the people now throwing their hands up during Target. And if those people throw their hands up and join the 30% who are fully awake, the doo-doo 30% of crazy people in the mass formation will no longer be able to tell themselves that 70% of people think like they do. because there are not many of these people out there. There are not. There are almost no transgenders. It's statistically almost zero. But like even the whole belief system thing, you're talking a small fraction of the population. But they've got the media behind them. There's social media bots. There's the CCP's 50 Cent Army on all the social media channels. You've got the bots on all the media channels, and they're just constantly giving the appearance that there's a lot of people who think this way, but there are not. And one time that you get to demonstrate it is by speaking with your wallet, because a bot doesn't have a wallet. And at 50 cents an hour, China's 50 Cent Army cannot afford to undo something like what happened to Bud Light. And it suddenly becomes clear just how many people, right? There's not enough people involved in the movement to step in and turn things around. When this movement, these Marxists tried to boycott Chick-fil-A, right? What did conservative-minded Americans, even classic liberal Americans, who just love this country, what did they do? Everybody went to Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A boomed in sales over their boycott. And there was nothing they could do about it because they don't exist. They don't exist. And this illusion needs to be broken down because it's important. Let me go ahead. I see some comments flipping through here. Let me try and get to some of this. Skylab, how are you, sir? Over on Facebook, the science is clear, my friend. Women are XX, men are XY. There's combos of this. What is it? Women may bring new life, but we have the X factor, but we also bring the Y. Much love. Yeah, much love to you too, Sky. And yeah, the science is clear. I can't even believe that we debate these things. I'm still baffled at the fact that this is even a debate. And it's really not a debate. And this is kind of what I'm getting at with the point that I'm making. Like, when you're talking about these people who really believe this stuff, it doesn't get past college-age students, with the exception of a handful of indoctrinated professors and whatnot. The entire rest of the world thinks this whole thing is like this mass formation is at a point, like Dr. Mateus Desmond, he keeps saying the more ridiculous, the better, once you're in mass formation. But this has just reached straight troll level now. Like the fact that they've taken these people, like somebody's sitting down somewhere, in probably in Beijing, looking at this whole debate over men being women and women, and just laughing their ass off because they don't allow any of this stuff in front of their children. This is all. It's like, if you don't know, like TikTok, right? The Chinese version of TikTok, what they show to Chinese kids or any of their allies' kids in their countries is completely different to what people see here in the States. Here we've got women with big boobs trying to catch hot dogs in midair. Over there, they've got people winning math and scholarly friggin' events, and and people getting scholarships and all of this great stuff. Like, their kids are growing up believing, even though it's a false belief, China is a hot mess, and don't believe all the garbage you read out there. Their economy is a complete parasite and paper tiger. But that's a topic for another day. Their children believe that it's a beast. They believe that it's on fire. They believe that it's China's moment to take over the world. And what do they allow through the funnels in our TikTok? Anti-America, everything. Oh, I'm intimidated by the flag. There are a bunch of guys came with flags, and I was so scared because, the flag is racist, right? And that's what we're hearing. That's what our youth are believing. Right now, our youth are legitimately arguing with people over whether or not men can have babies. Now, I will say this, Gen Z gives me some hope. They do. It's not that none of them have been sucked into this, but at this point, you almost can't blame them. Like Gen X, millennials, we own this crap because they were our kids. And we didn't see any of this coming until really 2020. So we own it, but that's fine. That's fine. We'll own it. But in the end, you know, it's time to get out of it. And Yuri Bezmenov gave us the path and basically said, you need to raise new generations of children who are patriotic, who understand real history, who don't get caught up in this nonsensical garbage. And I think 2020 was a turning point for that. So we'll see how that pans out. But right now, Target is reacting, all right, which is good. So I don't know if they've seen an immediate drop in sales. I don't know. I don't think anyone has those numbers, but we'll see. Isabel, how are you? Poor children were voluntarily chemically sterilized. Yeah, what they're doing to the kids. And that's what people need to understand is the big deal. Like, that's what people need to understand is the big deal. It's not some dude in a dress. There were dudes wearing dresses in New York City in the Village when I was freaking a kid. They had whole bars full of them. And the Rocky Horror Show, right? The Transvestite Transylvania or whatever, right? And we all, who didn't go to the Rocky Horror Show at least once? The main character was a transvestite. It's not like it's a new phenomenon. It's just a rare one. It's certainly not normal, and it's certainly not regular. And it is a mental situation. Gender identity disorder was well defined before the Marxists took it out of the books in 2012. There's tons of research on it. There's tons of studies on it. And they're all clear. If a young child is experiencing gender dysphoria or is unsure, the best solution is to do nothing and let them figure it out. Because regular social norms as they grow up will guide them. They'll pick what they want to do. And they almost always figure it out and just move on as a heterosexual. And those that don't end up it was like 95% of them became whatever, heterosexual. There was another like 4% that were still feeling that way, but they ended up becoming gay, not transgender. Just became a gay man or woman, still man or woman. And then there's that very small sliver who fit into that gender identity disorder, and it's an incredibly infinitesimally small amount. Certainly not enough to be, bringing up all this marketing and everything else. So, all right, let me see here. Teresa, I see you there, but you can't write entire essays like that. I can't put them on the screen. So let's see. Yeah, no, we got that already. Let me see. All right, so Skylab, it's not about the biggest selling beer, brother. It's about how it goes down. We have the best water in the world here in God Zone. It comes from melting ice caps. Our hops are number one. So what are we promoting here? New Zealand? Yeah, okay. So let me know some beers in New Zealand. I got Bevmo right over here. They sell just about every beer on earth. So I will definitely be happy. I am always happy to explore new beers, which is why the Bud Light thing was kind of fun to me, because it was like an opportunity for me to go test out some new stuff. I never drank Pabst before, even though it's been around since like 1880. But, it was, and I liked it, and so it's given me an opportunity to really get out there and explore some more beers. But that's interesting. Let's see, we got anybody new? And Sheila says, "Let the kids be kids." And guys, on another note, I do want to make mention. So Sheila is a district captain for Convention Estates, and I did promise that I was going to mention this, and I actually had it up. Here it is. So in New Jersey, for all of my folks in New Jersey, all right, CosFest 2023 is coming up. That's Convention Estates Fest. So it's a great opportunity to learn more about Convention Estates. Mark Meckler, who is the co-founder of Convention Estates, will be on hand. So, and I can tell you, Mark Meckler, I've never met him personally, but I can tell you, when I've watched a ton of his stuff, that the stories he tells and things like Levi Preston's story, and there's so many good stories, and like, you will definitely walk out just from hearing him alone with a good a good sense of history and some education to come with it. It's a great experiment in civics. You know, we've all been deprived of civics, so I would definitely encourage you to do it. It is Saturday, June 17th. All right, and it will be from 3 to 5:30 p.m. The place, I believe they rented out a church. It is, Bible Baptist Church in New Egypt, New Jersey. So I'm going to talk more about it going forward, and I'm actually going to have Sheila and the state director on, just about a week before, just to keep it fresh in everyone's head. But let me go ahead and put the link. If you're, I know we do have a decent following in New Jersey, so I want to make sure everyone gets this. So I am posting it. Let me. All right, so the link has been posted to all three platforms. Rumble, I will have to post it separately, so I will do that right now. All right, that's it. Everybody got it. So the links are in there. It's Convention Estates CosFest. Do not miss it. And guys, remember, some of you may be new to the broadcast, and you don't catch us every Wednesday. But if you ever have questions about Convention Estates, Article 5 of the Constitution, how it equates to taking our country back through constitutional amendment without involving the federal government at all, ask your questions at any time during a broadcast. As soon as I see those questions, I'm going to respond to them and make sure, even if I don't have an answer, then I will absolutely go find one and get back to you with it, because it does. Once you learn about Article 5, folks, you get past all the fear mongers and the deep state's going to take it over. But like, once you get done with your fear and you get past that and you realize what power this has, not just for the topics at hand. The topics at hand right now, 19 resolutions of the 34 needed have already been passed from 19 different states. All right. Those resolutions are all passed on the topics of term limits for all government officials. They're passed on federal government overreach of authority, mostly directed at regulatory agencies, but it does open up a lot of discussion for the convention. And then lastly are fiscal restraints. Think ballot's budget amendment, maybe overturning the 16th Amendment. All of this can be accomplished without dealing with the federal government at all, without asking permission, none of that. This is an imposing move. We impose this on them. They have no say. Deep state has no say. Supreme Court has no say. Congress has no say. State legislatures have a say. Actually, state legislatures have all the say. Governors have no say. It's state legislatures. Yes, and if you're not familiar, state legislatures, by way of the founding of this country, were designed to be the most powerful entity in the land. Period. You know why? Because they're the closest to you. That's why. Because they run districts that in some areas of this country only have 3,000 or so people in them. That's who you communicate with. They transfer that power, not transfer it, but utilize that power to mitigate the federal government. And that is what we're doing here. So get on board. All right. So no problem, Sheila. No problem. So anyway, I want just to get back on topic with Target. They've caved so far. Now, I don't want to call it a full cave, but I want to just say kudos to anyone, even if you were just going there to pick up a board game, right, and you chose to get it from Kmart instead or somewhere else. Then good. But it brings up the question, right? I mean, can you boycott everything? like at some point, right? It's like we really gotta they're infecting through ESG, right? Environmental social governance, through those standards developed by the WEF, right? They're going after so many corporations at once that it's almost like you'd have to boycott everything if every nuance of it was going to be something you want to boycott. And it's like, you don't want to, look, You can, right? I mean, you can just be like, you know what? I'm going to go drive down to Joe's Hardware, screw Home Depot. I'm going to go drive down, and like you could do that stuff so long as you can find it. You know what I mean? But they are inundating it everywhere. But I think that's what I keep hearing from everybody is you can't boycott everything. But my attitude is like this. It's like, maybe you can't boycott everything. That's true. But the more companies that you severely punish, the less companies are going to respect the ESG score. And I think that's the most pertinent thing here is that Anheuser-Busch right now is realizing that like BlackRock's not going to save them. That money that they lost, BlackRock, and really, you can bring it up to the WEF, and then, of course, ultimately to the CCP, who's running this whole show. If you think Klaus is like this brilliant mind who's going to take over the world, Klaus is some doo-doo professor who fit the 1980s villain role that they picked to put at the head. He's the shiny toy that we all get to yell at. It's the CCP who's pulling those strings because they're pulling the strings at the UN, right? But you look at how BlackRock, I explained to you earlier how they play this game, right? Where they go ahead, WEF and whoever through ESG make the company do something stupid, right? Companies already got a bunch of doo-doos they hired to comply with with ESG. So then those doo-doos just go out and do something really stupid, like make a big deal out of putting a tranny on a can. And then, boom, everyone rages. I'm mad. This is terrible. But, right, they pay it off. The stock tanks a little bit. Everyone goes to bed, goes, all right, yeah, we won. And then quietly BlackRock invests at the lower level and gets the money back, right? But if that pain stays, it matters because they can't come back in. Target bowed. So let's see how this goes, is what I'm saying. Right? I was not a big fan of boycotts. I'm still not an enormous fan of boycotts, but at the same time, like I said, there's hypocrisy there because I'm also a fan of spending money where, on things that promote my values. So in essence, if there are millions of people who share my values and we all make that decision together, effectively, that's a boycott. So then it becomes like, am I being a hypocrite or am I, but like my decision to stop buying Bud Light, it was an easy one to make. It was an easy one to make. And unfortunately for Bud Light, I found a beer I like more. One that I never would have looked for had it not been, for that nonsense. So, and then Sheila brought up a good point here, be a part of the solution. So I talked about convention of states. You can go to the website. You can go to our website as well, which is www.thepatriotthinktank.com. There's links there that will take you right to CAUSE's site. It's .com/COS. There are links there that take you right to the petition. You can sign it right there. Learn how to volunteer. They'll reach out to you locally. It is the path, folks. It is the path. All right, so let me see what we got here. I didn't even read this, and it's long, so let's hope it's not crazy. Johnny over at Twitch, the man who was infamously photographed with his feet Nancy Pelosi's office. Oh, yeah, his feet on the desk during January 16th, the 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, was sentenced Wednesday to 4. Yeah, that's wild. I mean, that's just wild. And it's like, look, they're weaponizing the government, and that's probably a good segue for where I'm going with the rest of this, is that, these hearings are coming out and these agents are stepping up, because what have we all been saying, right? What have we all been saying, right? We've all been saying, well, where are the good guys? We want to tell ourselves that there are, most of the FBI agents are good people. It's just the people at the top, right? But it's like that guy that was approached by the ATF, where they went there to take his FRT trigger set, his gun with it, and he was like, I'm not responding to you. I'm not doing anything. And they were like, well, it's not really us. We don't make the laws. Blah, blah, blah. But he just said to him, look, you may not make the laws. He's like, but at some point, you need to decide what team you're on, because what you're doing right now is completely unconstitutional. So if you're going to be okay going door to door, when they tell you and you want to be like, I'm just following orders, if you get unconstitutional orders, your job is to not carry out those orders. That's your job. Just as for these whistleblowers, it was their job to bring up the things that they brought up. And for bringing those things up, they were severely punished. Severely punished. Their livelihoods taken away, an inability to go out and find new work. Like, it wasn't just like you're fired. It's like you're fired and now you're blacklisted and you're not going to do anything in any field that you're good at. Go become an artist. We won't mess with you. But they took away their firearm training license, training paperwork, so they can't, which they need to apply for different jobs. I mean, they really beat these guys over. One guy, they purposefully assigned him out of state. Then the guy moves, and the day he gets there, they whack him. And he doesn't have access to any of his clothes and any of that stuff. They completely went off on these guys. And the FBI guys were not the only ones. All right? They were not the only ones. And I'm going to show you a clip from Comer when he said this, because, and I want to be clear, because I think once in the past I had said there were 11 other FBI informants or FBI whistleblowers who disappeared, were in jail or whatever. There were 11 other informants. They weren't all FBI. So I do want to clarify that before I play this. but here's the situation, right? Comer is trying to put together evidence on this, and they've got whistleblowers coming to them like crazy. So it's not even like they initially said, hey, let's start this hearing and then go find the whistleblowers. The whistleblowers were like ripping a trail on the rug to their office with all kinds of information, right? But then what happens? This is what happens.
9 of the 10 people that we've identified that have very good knowledge with respect to the Bidens, they're one of 3 things, Maria. They're either currently in court, they're currently in jail, or they're currently missing. They fear for their lives. Not only are the Biden lawyers and the Biden White House intimidating them, the media is trying to intimidate and discredit them.
This is very serious accusations here. That was House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer on Sunday Morning Futures with me yesterday.
All right. We don't need to listen to that doo-doo. I just wanted you to hear that piece with James Comer, because he said it pretty casually, but it was pretty blockbuster. Like, these folks are missing. Now, he did mention that many of these people are in the intelligence community. So he's like, and when I say that, he's like, in the spy game is the way he said it. And so with that being the case, it was not crazy to think that, like they know how to disappear kind of thing. But we're hoping they come. So it's not like they're all dead, right? It's that, like, if they were civilian, right, you'd be thinking, oh, they're missing. Well, we know they got Epstein, right? Or something like that. But because of the nature of their business, these people know how to disappear, and they know they're wanted. They know that these folks are going to come after them. They know how they're going to come after them. They know the whole deal. And so, but as an American citizen, we should be concerned. Like, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. And this is what I mean. Like, it's that 40%, folks, because the 30% who are in the mass formation, there's nothing that they're going to, there's nothing. They could show you a video of the head of the FBI, what's his name, Ray, screaming and yelling at this guy, outlining all the retaliation that they're about to do. And that 30% on the bottom would just be like, whatever, there's no evidence. And you could play it for them, and they'd be like, that's doctored. That's not real. Like, there's no level, right? That's what Yuri tells us. Yuri Bezmenov. That's why I got that shirt made. It's my favorite shirt at this point. That just basically, it's got the big picture of Yuri, and it says Yuri was right, because Yuri Bezmenov was right. And what he says when he's explaining ideological subversion is just that no matter what factual, once they're gone, they're gone. Once the process of demoralization has been complete, you cannot save that person. Now, I would take it a step further so that person could save themselves should there be an awakening moment. But there's nothing someone from the outside is going to say to convince that person that of what's going on. So we have to forget those 30% for now. Like, we literally have to just pretend they don't exist. Let them babble. Let them just, Biden's a genius. I don't know what you're talking about. That he's, those people, right? Just let them go. Nothing you can do. Focus on the things we can control, right? Things like Convention of States we can control, right? Things like these whistleblowers we can control. Like these whistleblowers coming out, right? This is legit. It's not one guy. And the Democrats tried to paint these guys, and this is why it hit a special trigger for me, because it so aligns with Convention of States. Like considering the events that have been going on, Convention of States can shut down the FBI. I mean, we can put a constitutional amendment, shutting down the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Now, and to never return. Now, I don't know that that's necessary, but it might be if this continues, right? Put in something where there can only be one agency for gathering intelligence. We don't need DARPA, NSA, CIA, FBI. We don't need all that. And we don't need a federal police force. We don't need it. What's the idea of federal murder charges? What, are the state murder charges not good enough? Like, what is that? So they get involved when it crosses state lines, but states can't communicate with each other. This is what I never understood about the FBI. It was always a power grab from day one, and they've been corrupt from day one. They really have been. I mean, Hoover was as corrupt as any. I mean, the dude was keeping files on friggin' on Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. Like this dude, these are American citizens, and this guy is like out there thinking it's totally okay. Like that's not okay. That's not okay. Leslie, how are you? Welcome to the show again. Leslie, over on Facebook, I think they unknowingly and unintentionally made us very savvy and resourceful when they locked our country down and we gave up so many things we took for granted. You're 100% right, Leslie. I say that all the time. 2020 was the moment. That was the moment for everything, right? The world changed in a lot of ways, but it also, look, for 70 years, okay, this 100-year war that CCP has had going on, it's well documented. It's not a conspiracy theory. If you want to see a phenomenal documentary on it, The Final War on Epic TV from the Epic Times, okay? The authority, by the way, as news organizations go on the CCP. The authority. Nobody has boots on the ground and sources inside the CCP the way Epic Times does. They started in China and fled to the United States because of free speech issues. And give you an example, they were talking about, they gave a full-blown documentary on the origins of the Wuhan lab, the origins of the coronavirus in the Wuhan lab leak in April 2020. You probably didn't see it because it got ripped off YouTube and they were freaking, ostracized for it. It's still available on their lineup on Epic TV, all right, which they do subscribe. But I'll tell you this, it's worth every penny. That's a subscription that's worth every penny. Like if you found it okay and worth money to subscribe to Netflix, but you got a problem subscribing to that, cancel cable, all right, to my boomer generation out there who's still hanging on to those cable boxes. Cancel cable and let one of your grandkids or your kids show you how to set up a stream service and how to look for these things online. If you're watching me, you can figure out how to watch the Epic Times, right? It is not a lot of money. It's not an overly expensive type of deal, right? But it is way, way, way worth it. I get emails all the time, pertinent information, but they just did a documentary on the CCP that is absolutely fantastic. It's like 2.5 hours long. So they broke it into pieces. So there's like sections, but it breaks down a lot of it I already knew, but a lot of it I did not know. Like you've got the daughters of some of the high ups in Mao's administration. You got like all speaking to the cameras and giving the goods. And the picture that they paint and how diabolical and how patient and slow They like and how they bide your strength or hide your strength and bide your time. That was their motto. While the Soviets were doing their thing, just sitting back and waiting. The Soviets fell, they slipped right in, picked up right where they left off. Ideological subversion was already successful at that point. But this is a nation that is as diabolical as hell. 70 years they've been chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. We never knew. All of us, my generation, no idea. I look back now, I see it all over the place. All over the place. The communist principles, break up the family, right? Break up the family, pull people away from religion. All I got to say is heavy metal. 80s heavy metal. That's all I got to say about it. I mean, it's endless, the demonic references and things like that. Now, I got into this with my brother, and he's like, not my band, not this one, not that. And I'm like, people don't understand. It's not like the band is saying, I'm saluting the CCP. The band is chosen by a producer. Okay. And the producer, there's a lot of talented people in this world, folks, right? This is something we got to understand. It's not like it's in the 80s. It wasn't like, well, if you're good, you'll go big. Quite the contrary. You had to know somebody. You had to get hooked up. Someone had to select you. And the people they were selecting, okay, were the people that were wearing the wild makeup, that were doing the blood and guts, that were, Twisted Sister with the bone in his mouth. It's not like Dee Snider was like, I'm far from it. But the people who were producing and putting the music out, hip-hop's no different. I grew up with hip-hop. When it was on the street before it hit the radio, hip-hop was all about, it was still talking about the black experience in the inner city, but it was not shoot them all, kill them all, whatever. It was like telling the story. It was like saying, this is what it's like. Now, when the productions took over and the producers took over, it quickly spun from the 80s to the 90s into what you hear the content-wise, okay, from people like Biggie Smalls, where it's gangster rap now, right? NWA, that sort of thing. And that's not an accident. All of that, all the way down the line. And I don't even have to explain the 70s. The hippies were the first ones. The hippies were the first ones to be indoctrinated. And they were all out, man. They were all out. Anti-US from the core. And so this has been going on slowly for 70 years. And for 70 years, our eyes have been shut. But to Leslie's point, in 2020, everything changed. So many things did not make sense. So many things, getting a peek into our children's classrooms, right? Up until 2020, most parents would send the kids to school when they're little and be like, trust your teacher, right? Listen to your teacher. Because we're thinking like our parents did, right? Our parents were like, trust your teacher, right? But it wasn't like the subversion wasn't in the lower grades at that point. Like when we were coming up little, and I went to Catholic school for the first 12 years, so I was somewhat immune to a lot of this anyway. But in the end, like they weren't really hit. They hadn't gotten down to the granular, to the grammar school level in the 80s, But that was to come, right? That started probably 2000 or so. But again, because no one was aware of what the hell was even going on in the first place. And they kept coming up with the new shiny thing for us to look at. So we kept getting mad about this. I mean, I was that guy. I was that guy who was arguing that the Patriot Act, I don't care, I'll admit it, that the Patriot Act was a good thing. And frankly speaking, I know for 100% fact that 95% of the people who bad talk it now are full of crap. Because when that was going down, there was freaking unanimity everywhere. Everybody was together on it. Yeah, and I do remember there being some outliers. I do remember that because I debated them. But there were not many. There were not many debates I had to have about that. Going into Iraq, same thing. Hindsight, everybody's like, I knew this from the beginning. It's just not true. But in the end, once we started realizing after 2020 how many things were crazy it suddenly opens your mind to look further into other things, only to find out that the world is absolutely insane. Only to find out that the world's absolutely insane. But the good news is eyes are open now. Eyes are open, and now people are seeing it. You know, I posted one time, if you go to Ballotpedia and you look up school board recalls, you'll see from 2020 to 2021, they tripled. They tripled. Like, people are wide awake now, and it's making things incredibly difficult for these folks to continue on. Incredibly difficult. They were not supposed. You know, some people say they unleashed the virus. It definitely came out of the lab. That we know for a fact. And whether they were opportunistic and just saw it come out, you know, like it happened, and then they were like, well, you know what? It's out now. Let's use it. You know, totally threw their hand around the United Nations, WHO, and were like, listen, it's fine. It doesn't transfer to humans. What? Shut up. It doesn't transfer to humans. And the WHO was like, okay, it doesn't transfer to humans. And literally went out and told the world that while China was allowing flights out, but no flights in. And nobody thought that was suspicious. They knew exactly what they were doing. And that's why I tell you that whether it's opportunistic or it was intentional, it doesn't matter. The point is, they're the ones influencing the UN. The UN is influencing all this doo-doo garbage with the WEF, and the WEF is influencing the Western world. But you follow that back, and you know what? I'm open to somebody telling me that that's not the case. If you've got a ton of evidence to do that, knock it out. But I've been following this WEF thing for a long time. And believe me, I could keep putting videos out. Every time I put something out with Creepy Klaus on the cover or George Soros, it does well. Even though I'm being shadow banned, if I put those guys on, it'll do better. But I stopped doing it because it ain't about them. And I started pointing my videos. You know, at one point I was going straight for the neck for Xi Jinping. And then it began. Then the occasional 2-day shadow ban became a never-ending, you know, shadow ban that's been now going on for months. I don't really care because that's where the problem is. But now people see it. And right now, if nothing else, people are just trying to make sense of it all. If nothing else, because it's so interwoven and it's been going on for so long that it's so hard to wrap your head around how deeply they've penetrated our institutions. How deeply, because it wasn't just China. Like China, most of it was the Soviet Union up until 1990. China was weak and insignificant, but they kept playing this game. They kept coming back to us like, hey, we got an olive branch. And we kept believing them like idiots. Oh, can you imagine what a free and democratic China would be like? No, I can't. Because there's absolutely no scenario that involves a free and democratic China. There never was from day one. And all the smoke and mirrors that they put out there didn't matter. But now the difference is people are seeing it. We're seeing it, and now people are taking action. Now it's really hard, right? If 2020 doesn't happen, a lot of the crap you see going on today would not be a lot of the pushback and the blowback and the this and that. Everyone would just be going on with their lives, being like, whatever, training on a can, you know, whatever. I don't even, what's that tuck thing? Ha ha ha, that's funny. That's where everybody would be, because we'd still be sucked in. We'd still be there. But a good portion of us, a vast majority of us, in my opinion, between Donald Trump and that, like those two things happening in succession, like how many people showed their true colors out of their hatred for Donald Trump? I still think to this day that was his best contribution outside of the Supreme Court. Supreme Court justices, I mean, whoever was in office then, that would have been their greatest contribution. But that being said, outside the Supreme Court, I think his greatest contribution was the absolute meltdown that the left had, that the Marxists had at his presidency because they just went off the rails. And now it was out there. The light was being shined on the cockroaches. Before Trump, there were still people in this world who thought CNN was a legitimate news organization. There were still people in this world watching MSNBC for their nightly news, watching CBS or ABC. They were watching these networks. Now we've got those people even looking at Fox like, get the hell out of here. Some of us earlier than others. Their viewership was already tanked before Tucker. He was the only thing holding that network up. Why? Because people see now. They see, right? I mean, these FBI agents came into this friggin', they came into that whole hearing, and the assault that they took from Democrats should tell everybody that, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, at least not unless you're a Marxist. Then I don't care what you think. But if you're like a Democrat, like a liberal Democrat, right, free speech believer, believe in the protections, you're pro-abortion and you're pro-union and you got those topics going on, we could argue those topics all day long. But if you're a rational-minded human being with respect to the Constitution, this situation and FBI agents in numbers are coming out saying they had problems with some of the orders that they were taking, and because they mentioned it, they were retaliated against in an environment where there's accusations everywhere about the FBI, CIA, etc., doing all kind. I mean, it's not like these are clean organizations. So when they come up there and you're on a committee that's supposed to be overseeing this agency, and there are whistleblowers coming out saying this is just the tip of the rabbit hole. For you to walk into that hearing with an attack plan prepared, you haven't even seen their testimony yet. So the whistleblowers would not provide their testimony before the hearing to the Democrats on the committee, and that was pissing them off. But you know what? It's their prerogative. It's their testimony. And in the end, they're right because they're inside the organization and they know what happens when you give the other side, when you give the attacker your testimony. What they're going to do is hand it out to teams and teams of people who are going to go through your entire life and try and just destroy everything that, like, you think the FBI by themselves were bad. No, they weren't giving them that. Now they'll give it to them because they had a chance to question them. But rather than ask reasonable questions and listen to what they had to say, now they did have an opportunity to say it because the Republicans on the committee were asking those questions and bringing some of that, giving them an opportunity to tell their story, in particular in the very beginning. But one after one, they're getting accused of just being disgruntled employees. Like, why would they weren't disgruntled until they were retaliated against? These are all people, one of them was the employee of the year in 2019 for his office. Another one has a litany of war medals and like, these are people who have been fighting for this country in one level or another, whether all of them veterans, all of them, moved into the FBI, all of them acclaimed when they got there, getting selected for special jobs and things like that until they noticed something that they didn't like. One guy, I believe it was Agent Friend, and I still call them Agent, even though, whatever. But I think it was Agent Friend who had said, one of the things he brought out was he was not comfortable bringing the full-blown SWAT team to pick up this one guy because they had spoken to this guy numerous times, and every time they spoke to him, he assured them that he would be cooperative. There would be no issues. There's not, but they picked a photo of him marching in some anti-something demonstration, and he was all strapped up in gear and whatever. But it's like, the guy doesn't walk around all day like that. Like he was at an event where he was making a statement. No one even knows if he had these canisters. Oh, he's got gas canisters. There's nothing in those. We don't know, right? We'll never know. But the point is that one photo doesn't take away from the fact that you've sat down with this guy over and over and over again. And the agent saying, I've done over 150 arrests. I've never once had to use a SWAT team to apprehend the suspect. Never once. And you know, I showed those in the one video I just put out while they were accusing him of this stuff. I showed, you know, what the real situation was. The other side, I should say, right? So you've got the one side, because there's always the two. You've got the one side is the narrative they painted on the January 6th commission. And then you've got the other side, which is what, you know, everybody else seems to have seen, was what the other 3 million people were doing, 2 million people, right? So the one side shows you all the videos of what, maybe a couple thousand at best, right? We're doing. And then you've got the other 2 million people, which was most people's experience there. And there was nothing violent about any of that. But they took, there's a guy in the capital punishment documentary, there's a guy who, he and his daughter, they have it on video. They show up to his house with battering rams and a gun turret. It's him and his daughter. This dude did not even enter the Capitol. Did not even enter the Capitol. They don't even have him on the trespass charge. They confiscated constitutions. He had a box of pocket constitutions. They bagged them and considered them evidence. Like, this is how wild that stuff got. It's crazy. I've been on a rant for a little while here, so let me try and catch up with some folks. All right, this guy spent 10 minutes in Pelosi's office. So this is the guy, January 6th, with the feet on the desk. Spent 10 minutes in Pelosi's office, only left when he was sprayed. He wrote a note to Pelosi calling her a bitch. Yeah, I can't disagree with him there. Court documents also state that Barnett had a stun gun in his pants. Again, there wasn't even anyone near him to stun. While in the speaker's office, and that took an envelope from the office. What? He took an envelope? Is that what? It's a grand theft? Is that grand theft, I guess? Prosecutors said he left the Capitol showing the envelope to other rioters like it was a trophy. So, all right, so here we go. So we got a guy doing 4 years right now for holding up an envelope and saying it was a trophy. I mean, look, I'm not saying, all right, you broke into Pelosi's office. You're definitely trespassing. So I'm totally okay. I'm not saying everyone should be left alone that went into the Capitol and nothing should happen to anybody. I am saying 4 years for that. Everything you just listed here, I don't know what perspective you're coming from, Johnny. So, like, I don't know if you're posting that to be like, you know, well, look how bad this stuff is, or if you're posting it to be like, look at what a joke this is. You can look at it either way. I mean, you know, they're saying, oh, he had a stun gun in his pants while in the speaker's office. There was no one with him in the speaker's office. So I'm not even sure, like, how that went down, unless maybe there's more footage that I didn't see. I don't know. But I know there were 2 million people outside the building that never even went in. And nothing. They were singing songs, pledging allegiance to the flag. They had there was a dude there in a Fags for Trump shirt. So saying, all right, LGBT is represented. There were black, there were people there were Chinese first generation citizens there pleading. I've used that footage on some of my videos in the past, pleading with people to the camera, like, you can't let this happen here. Why? Because at that section, all right, and that's if you're familiar with the videos, there was a section where it was like a balcony, and the Capitol Police were firing into the crowd. So to flashbangs into the crowd, not bullets, but flashbangs, and they're just exploding like all over the place. And literally, there was a point which I captured and put in that clip where they're holding their hands up and saying, hands up, don't shoot. And did that for like 4 minutes before receiving more flashbang fire. So there's a lot going on in the Capitol that day. And like, look, I'm sure within all the footage that there are some people that that might have done something violent. I don't know. The policeman didn't die from the riots, so that's nonsense, right? You got Ashley Babbitt, you know. Did he need to shoot her? No, he absolutely did not. Are you going to press charges against him for it? I don't think you can. I think at that point, as much as I hate the fact that that happened, and it disgusts me because I think 99% of cops in this world would not have fired on a woman coming through such a small thing like that. That's not going to become a floodgate. But the fact is, she's got to know better too. You don't go like I know if I was there, I would not have gone into the Capitol. There's no way. Everybody that walked in, but now there was element of the Capitol Police waving people in, so there's that. But like, look, I hear you, Johnny, but I'm not sure which side of this you're on. But let me see here. We got more from Facebook. Robert, keeping it short. I'm a Catholic and don't understand why cause has meetings in churches. Maybe a turnoff to other non-Christian Americans with similar views. Yeah, it could be. It could be. I think the reason that they do it in churches, if I had to guess, and I really have no idea, is that they're probably getting the space for free. So, and so that's my guess. I don't know, but I do know that, there are many Christians who are down with this movement. So, contacts, this, that, whatever, it all comes down. Like it could just be, but there's a point to be made there. Like maybe someone's, it's not like an atheist can't love the Constitution. Like we got to focus on what the argument is here. And the argument is the Constitution. And so, whatever religion, faith, whatever you come from, that it is about the Constitution first. But I can tell you, look, it's not like you're going to get indoctrinated. It's not like someone's trying to bring you to Jesus. Like that's, maybe, I don't know. I haven't gotten to go to that one. I went to some events here, but they weren't as big as that. So I'm not sure. But I agree. They should be in, they should be in neutral places because we're trying to bring it all in. And if religion of different sects and faiths and, how comfortable is a Muslim going to be going into a Christian church for a meeting? I don't know. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they do. I would need a patriot that's of the Muslim faith to tell me that one. Let me see. What do we got here? So Leslie says Fox News lost me on November 3rd of 2020. Yeah, they did lose a lot of people on election day. Here's the thing with a lot of those folks, and Hannity falls in this camp, and I stopped watching them even before that because I saw this in them prior. Is that it's not that it's not like they're in this attack mode where they're like truly don't like Trump or they want to bash Trump. Like they really believe they still buy in to the whole, well, there's a left and the right and Republicans and Democrats and what Republicans do are good. What Democrats do are bad. And they don't see the world like I do. And I think like many of you out there do. Like the Fox hosts, like they think like Brett Baer, right? Like Brett Baer's got a network of friends in Washington that have been there forever. And he thinks his military source is a legit source. And if someone told him that his military source was being fed BS information for the specific purpose of giving it to him, right? And his source doesn't know that it's BS, but that Operation Mockingbird is fully in effect, Brett Baer would look at you like you're some kind of nut who doesn't understand how the media industry works. And that's why I just disassociate with all of them, because they truly believe like the Mitch McConnells of the world are not the problem, right? They're everything that's wrong with the left, but just on the right. And over the years, they've had a few gems thrown in there, all right? And I'll throw O'Reilly in there. I used to watch him pretty religiously. I was a lot dumber back then. But at the same time, I'll throw him in there because at least he's not on a narrative. But none other than his own narrative, which, sometimes I agreed with him, sometimes I didn't. But that's why he got knocked out, right? Like, you can't have that. And then, you got Tucker coming in after him. Tucker loved him. Tucker took it to another level. Tucker took that job in a way that when Tucker took that job, it was the agreement, I'm sure, he said as much, was, it's pretty much going to be like O'Reilly, right? Yeah, Exactly like that. And he got himself comfortable, warmed up the seat a little bit, and started popping off. Just dropping truth bombs. And he's the only person on the entire network who understood, who sees what the rest of America sees, who knows what the rest of America is looking at. Like Tucker understood that, and that's why he got more ratings than everybody else on that network combined. Because it was not Hannity's going to tell you. I could tell you what Hannity's going to tell you before he says it. I could tell you, and it bores the living daylights out of me. It bores the living daylights out of me. And honestly, if anybody was shocked to see Hannity, like I blasted him on this channel. I blasted him when he went off on that congresswoman. Her name is escaping me right now. But here you have a handful of freaking people in the House when they're setting the rules, making demands that are legitimate demands that every Republican should be for. And they got to fight tooth and nail for it. And Hannity had the audacity. Hannity's take on that was that they were the problem. And that tells you all you need to know. He drove it back later when he started getting bashed by his viewership. But he had no idea he was that out of touch. He had no idea. And that whole network is that way. That whole industry is that way. Now, there are some of them who who believe this stuff. Like again, it's just like I was saying with the metal bands earlier. Like, it's not like the band is going, hey, I'm with the CCP. They just get selected because the message that they happen to be into, right? Like they're singing, they're doing songs about, like their name is Black Sabbath, right? Or Shout at the Devil from Motley Crue, right? Even Van Halen, Running with the Devil. I mean, it's everywhere. Twisted Sister, Burning Hell. Like you got songs like that going on. You didn't write those songs for the CCP, and you believe everything you say when you say, I think people are smart enough to know, they're not, we're not devil worshipers or whatever. But the producers want that message. So then they approach you and tell you how brilliant and awesome you are. And it's the same thing in every profession that's meaningful. Same thing for acting, same thing for professors, same thing everywhere. And they just give these people these jobs who organically believe this way, and then they go on and do their thing. But they're all like Yuri was saying, even in 1984 when he did that interview, at that time he's like, all of these friggin' half-wit stone dropouts from the 60s are all in positions of power in politics, in Hollywood, in music, in universities, everywhere. That was then. So now understand, while they're in those positions, they're giving themselves awards. They're all idiots. They're all incompetent. Some of them had some talent because it just so happened they found a talented person who believed in all the craziness that they needed. But all that belief was organic. It wasn't instilled in them in that way. It was slowly brought about organically. And you just put these people in the positions of power. Try to find the most competent one you can who's on message. But then that person starts getting awards and accolades. So by the time you get, that's the 80s. Now you're in the 90s and 2000s. Now it's like, well, we've got Nobel Prize winner before his name. And we've got, Bala cum laude. And we got, all these things. So now they give him extra legitimacy. Sorry, man. I'm just getting past the hour. My throat can't handle it. But those things, those awards, everything they give them along the line, give these people legitimacy. So what does that mean? It means now the next young generation come up, and they're coming into this guy's class, and he's got a best-selling novel. He's got all of this stuff has been staged and overly promoted by production companies or whatever else. But he has it. He's got all these things. So you don't know. Right? You got to be like, who am I to question, someone of his stature? And it just helps to dumb down the rest of us. It just drives me nuts because I hate always going over this and knowing that it's so freaking. Isabella Dom on Facebook. Now, you just named every single woman on Fox. Did you mean? I don't know who you meant. I feel like everybody is blonde on Fox. That's like just. I might be overstating it a little. There were some, I guess, over the years who are not, but the vast majority of them are. And like, but just to get back on topic, with these FBI agents, like now you got spy agents who are missing, right? Because they've gone dark because they know they're coming after them. At least we hope, right? We hope that that's what they did. Now they're not all missing. The ones that aren't missing have been arrested and are either in jail or in court with gag orders. How do you as a commission not see, like, not at least, even if you don't want to believe it, how do you not at least open your eyes and say, this is curious, this is concerning, I want to hear more? But they don't want to hear more. No, what they wanted to do was go in there and bash the living daylights out of this guy. Every single Democrat on that panel started off by bashing them in one way or another. Now, I did the full video on this Linda Sanchez. So she was my favorite in the whole thing. Okay, she turned around and literally asked the dude, and I put it in the ticker video. You can see it there too. It's also in the last video that I put out. I did a full breakdown of her 5 minutes because it was just ridiculous. Where she asked him, she comes in prepared with this Twitter account and says, do you have a Twitter account that's, what was his name again? Marcus Allen. That was Marcus Allen A0659123664. And he's like, no, that's absolutely not my account. That's not your account? No, that's absolutely not my account. That's it right there. Over. Whatever you were going to ask about that freaking tweet, you let it go. But no, she continued on and like pressed it. Like, well, an account with the name Marcus Allen on it, which is not like an unfamiliar name. And frankly, when you hear the A08946, like maybe it's just me, but isn't that kind of what happens when you put in your username? Like the odds of this being a bot were tremendous. Like you put in a username and then it's like, oh, that name's not available. Try this. And it adds like 8 million numbers to the end of your name. Like that didn't flag anyone that this probably wasn't his account in the first place, but no. She went all in, still quotes the tweet, even though it's... So now she found herself at a point where she's quoting a completely irrelevant tweet by someone who nobody even knows. And the tweet itself, even the content was bizarre. She's asking, do you agree with this tweet that Nancy Pelosi planned January 6th? And he was like, no. She waterboarded him all the way up to that spot to give that simple answer before she could get that question out. And it was all in reference to someone who never even knew who it was. like literally, I could pull up Twitter and just pull up the first tweet I see and be like, do you agree with this statement? And just read off the statement. It would have been just as relevant as what this woman asked. But one of my favorites, there are two, but I'm only going to go over one because we're getting close. We're getting close to go time here. So, but she actually starts off her interrogation, which is really what it was, by quoting what the FBI accused him of. Now, he's there because of retaliation from the FBI. And her first attack on him, and it is an attack, you'll hear the tone that she says it in. Her first attack on him was to go over it and say, didn't the FBI call you a conspiracy theorist? Let me just play it. Hold on.
Do you believe you should have allegiance to the United States to possess a security clearance? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Do you believe your obligation as a federal agent should supersede your First Amendment right? Yes or no?
Can you please rephrase the question, ma'am?
Do you believe that your obligation as a federal agent should supersede your First Amendment right? Yes or no?
Actually, sorry, my clips aren't labeled. They don't give me the ability to do that. And that was the second one that I was talking about. So, which we could do as well, rather than play both. This one, she's asking him, do you believe that your duties supersede your freedom of speech? And the answer to that question is no, right? Depending on the context, right? So are you specifically saying top secret information, or are you just saying in general? And he doesn't know how to answer, so he keeps making her rephrase it. She keeps asking the same question, and then she comes back and completely rephrases it and says, well, do you think your opinion should be what affects your judgment on? And he was like, no, you have to be. But it's like he had to make her ask it 3 times just to. But what a dumbass question. She knew it was a dumbass question. He made her say it twice. She had to say it again. And when she said it again, it was a completely different question. It's just wild. It's just wild, the attacks and the way these people are going off on them, and the onslaught, one after the other with them. Now, there were breaks in this hearings. It was 3 hours long. I watched them so you don't have to. So there were breaks in the hearings where Republican would be on there and kind of put things in perspective, right? Like Gates came on and did it. But I just, leave in the comments what your thoughts are on that. And also, guys, do me a favor, again, for all of you who are here from that Facebook group, that's a new thing I did today. So I don't know who's still with me now after an hour and a half. It's usually a completely different group of people than they were in the beginning, but it is what it is. Leslie over on Facebook, Hannity did that to Lauren. Yeah, Lauren Boebert. Yeah. That's who he did. That's who Hannity belittled and whatever. He also did a hit piece on PA primary Senate candidate. Yeah, did he really? I didn't even know that. Okay. Yeah, Hannity is a tool. That we can agree on. Yeah, Isabel saying Hannity looks bought. Yeah, he does. Look, I don't think he's bought. What I'm saying is he believes this crap. He believes that there's a left and a right and this and that, and that everything on the right is good and everything on the left is bad. And it's like, no, there are Marxists and there are Americans. Like, that's it. So yeah, there's a left and right in that sense. But there's no the Democrat-Republican thing is ridiculous. Right now, Kennedy, who's running, who's got a platform that I think a lot of people will agree with. He also has things that a lot of conservative-minded people will not agree with. But the dude is at least bringing it back to rational Democrats. Right? Like the dude at least sees the hand in front of him, right? So, and I think, that's something that is refreshing to see. I would never vote for the man, but I think that it's refreshing to see. I think that it's nice to see that there's at least an issue, the basic common stuff, right? Like he's on the same page as the country on this transgender issue. He understands the Marxist threat to this country. He understands those principles. That's good, right? That's good. He's certainly not. I mean, they'll bury him. They're never going to let this man win a primary. If they buried Bernie, this guy's done. But at the same time, it is refreshing to see someone out there who actually is, who actually does have some sensibility to him and is not a total asshat, right? So on that note, good for Kennedy. But what Kennedy represents are the majority of Democrat voters in my mind. And I think this is what people need to realize. What I say before, there are not nearly as many of these crazy Marxists as we all say. Yes, those Marxists have aligned themselves with the Democrat Party. Yes, the Democrats have voted for them. I guess enough of them voted for him to make Biden the most popular president in the history of the world, right? So that was impressive. They put a complete demented human being as the most popular president in the world. But in reality, right? In reality, these people are looking for other people to vote for. But they too are pigeonholed into that there's only a right and left, and I can never be right. I can never be on the right. So I have to be on the left. And even as the left decays into what it is, and then we've got Trump on the other side who's about as polarizing as anything, they can't go to Trump. So they're like, well, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And they either stay home or they vote for Biden. And that's what we've been seeing. But this guy Kennedy is going to give them an avenue, but those are sane people, who exist in this world that I do want people to acknowledge. So I think we get very caught up in calling everything, right and left. All right, folks. So I'm ready to go. I'll talk to you guys next week. Look out for some videos. Make sure you're following. Subscribe to the Rumble channel. I'm out.
like that.